have a lot that's going on today. So this is going to be shorter in terms of video content because I have a very brief window of time in which the dining room will not be occupied. We had service today, and then like regular service today, we have our supper club tonight and our creating community workshop. So supper club people are back there getting ready for dinner, and then we were also doing work outside. So Zach was out there taking nails out of the, so there's just been a lot of activity going on. You'll see or hear potentially people throughout the course of this video. But welcome. Today is a Thursday actually for me. I normally film on Wednesdays, but happy Thursday. And we are going to spend the next, well, first of all, hi, my name is Catherine. I am on a mission to change the way that our world both views and employs adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And there are several different ways that I am going about that. One is by creating content online for you to watch. I also am available to do that education and advocacy and speaking in person. And we have a restaurant here in Greensboro, North Carolina, where we practice an equal employment opportunity hiring model for adults with disabilities. Hi, Richmond.
Hey, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're good. You're going to be in the YouTube video next week then. We're a small French-inspired cafe in Greensboro, North Carolina, and we practice equal employment for adults with disabilities within our business concept and model, and are hoping to continue to perfect and become more excellent in the work that we do, and then teach our model to other businesses, not necessarily specific to the restaurant or the hospitality industry, that just happens to be my industry, about how to make their workspaces more inclusive and adaptive to disabled employees. So that's the long and the short of what we do. But today and over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about different models of disability, and some of the mindsets and also some of the bias that may be present in each of those models. So there's 3 different currently models of disability that are known and accepted. There's a moral model, a medical model, and a social model. Today we are going to be talking about the medical model and just briefly breaking down what that is, some of the pros, some of the cons. Would love to hear your questions and thoughts about that. If this is a new concept to you, welcome. It is also a fairly new concept to me and something that I have been doing some research on recently. But there is, I think, a lot of good stuff for us to get into here because each of these models does present very different mindsets, beliefs, values, etc. about disability. There's a good chance that you will see or identify with some of each of those models and may land more predominantly or prevalently in one camp. And because there are pros and cons to each, it's good to just be aware of what they are, and also some ways that we can continue to draw awareness to how disability is being presented, reflected, talked about in our world, in our media, among our friends, perceived and thought about in our own brains, and then pushing back against areas that we feel like need to grow, shift, evolve, or just get rid of altogether. So, medical model of disability. This model of disability starts more with a diagnosis of a disability, and typically presents or places the responsibility of the disability onto the disabled human, or potentially, depending on the disability itself, onto a caregiver or a family member. As the name may imply, being a medical model, there tends to be a stronger emphasis on the deviation potentially or difference between what a non-disabled human may experience in life versus a disabled human. And a lot of times within the medical model, there's a push to try to bring the non-disabled human as close back to baseline or a non-disabled person as possible. And that is done through a variety of different ways: therapies, treatments, medications, etc. So I was like, therapies. I was going to say that twice, but I think I already said that at the beginning. I think that's how I kicked it off. There are pros and cons to this. Some of the more obvious pros are that has pushed medical understanding, awareness, practices, therapies, treatments, etc. within the disability world and community, and those can be very helpful tools and experiences that someone with a disability or a family member may receive benefit from. There are some cons to that as well, in that a lot of the mindsets that we see or experience in our world around this idea of fixing someone with a disability or finding a cure for a disability. Again, the idea that it's better to be a non-disabled person than a disabled person, that a disabled person is less fortunate than a non-disabled person, that something needs to change or that a person needs to change. That's where a lot of that thinking can come from. Even if potentially there may be some good intentions wrapped up in that sort of warped or harmful thinking, a good intention there being that say a non-disabled parent may want all the opportunities and accessibilities possible for a child with a disability and may focus on more of a medical mindset. It still can project this idea that there's something not okay or wrong about being disabled, whether that's to the person directly with a disability or that's just kind of being put out into the world in general. So that's our medical model. In a nutshell, diagnosis-based, the differences between a non-disabled and a disabled person being highlighted, and then the goal oftentimes is set of trying to coach, therapize, treat, medicate, etc., the disabled to being as closely transformed into a non-disabled human as possible. Again, some pros for that are that we have therapies and treatments and medications that are available now that we didn't used to have, and there is important work in terms of access, medical care, different therapies, different coping mechanisms, tools, etc., that can be really useful. So we don't want to throw all of that out, but we do want to be mindful of the thought process behind it, or a comparison, and comparing a disabled person to a non-disabled person and thinking that one may be better or less fortunate than the other. Just not our stance here, but it is helpful to, it's been helpful to me as I've learned about each of these models to see where I detect some of those biases in myself, where I see that in our culture, where I see that in our media, things that have maybe subconsciously rooted into me just because it's something that I've been around or heard a lot about. Hi, Angelina.
Hi, Kevin. Sorry.
You're fine. You're just going to have a little cameo in the YouTube video next week.
Okay.
Okay, great. You guys are getting all the cameos. Richmond already walked through earlier, so we're just getting all the...
That's cool.
Yeah, it's great. That's it. We'll wrap it up there. Stay tuned over the next couple of weeks for moral and social models. As always, if you have questions, please drop them below. If this content is helpful to you and you would share it with a friend or a family member that you think would also enjoy or appreciate it, as always, if you can like or subscribe, those things are helpful too in terms of drawing more traffic to our page and generating eventually some income for us out of these videos. So we appreciate you. We hope you have a good week. We're going to go feed some people dinner now.